Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Kate Plays and welcome to a bonus video in our 5-part Planning a Zoo mini-series. I thought that 5 parts sounded better than 6, but this is one of my favorite parts, so here we are. Usually around this time in planning, or when the idea sparks, I start to get to thinking. Ideas start popping up like seeds as I ponder the idea of my zoo project. I start to ask myself things about when did the zoo begin and where did it begin? Why? I start to think about the creator of the zoo. Who is that creator? And what was their mission in creating this wildlife sanctuary? Now, creating a backstory or lore for your zoo is not necessary when creating a Planet Zoo project, but what it can do for you is keep you bought into the project, keep you coming back night after night on your computer, bought into seeing how this zoo is going to turn out. We thank you, Planet Zoo, for the late nights. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into bonus video, backstory and lore galore, how to plan a backstory for your zoo. So let's start by talking about what I'm referring to when I reference lore or backstory. So backstory is going to be describing the events or circumstances that led up to where we're at now. And lore is going to be the information or knowledge or traditions that are usually passed down over time through a culture. So how can you create it in your zoo? Let's start with tip 1, which is going to be finding real zoo backstories for inspiration online. So here we are in the handy dandy search engine Google, and I have just searched local zoo backstory. And you see right off the bat, there are several different zoos that have a history page as a part of their website that you can go read their history and backstories to find even more zoo inspiration. So I went to the top 3 just to take a peek for us. Start out at Sacramento Zoo, and you'll see their history page is rich with when they started, all kinds of information about how many animals they had when they started and information like that. You can find old pictures of the zoo, complete with lots of backstories about when different exhibits opened and why. We also took a look at the Lincoln Park Zoo. They had a really cool timeline, which was really fun to click through. Told you more about the creation of their zoo. A little bit interactive, which is fun. So as you can see, you can find lots of information on zoo websites about their general backstory and history, which can give you lots of ideas. The final one we took a look at was the Maryland Zoo and their history page. Again, the story of their zoo is listed there with all the information about their creation. Sometimes they'll have founders' stories and all other bits and pieces that you can find in here. And this can help you with creating an idea about what you might want to make the backstory of your zoo. Real quick search in your preferred search engine, doesn't have to be Google. So just take a look and see what you find. And that brings us to the next tip in how you can create backstory and lore, and that is going to be answering these questions to get an idea for what's your backstory. The first question is, where is your zoo located? And then, is the location of that zoo integral to the backstory? Like my rainforest zoo is set in a tropical rainforest, and Rudy's new space zoo set in space. The next question is, when was your zoo founded? And is that going to impact your story in any way, such as building styles or storylines? One of my favorite questions to answer is, who are the founders of the zoo? Where are they from? Do they have any passions that brought them into the zoo world? What were their careers before this? Is there anything interesting or quirky about your creators? What is the mission of the zoo? Is it conservation, rescue and rehabilitation, or is it greed, profit, and entertainment? The most looming question, will you go as crazy as me and write a backstory for each and every animal that's put in your zoo? Now that you've answered those questions, let me give you some context by giving you some lore examples. So you could have a zoo that is all about scientific discovery, maybe groundbreaking research renowned for innovative techniques. Or maybe you could have a zoo that is all about a local legend or a myth where you incorporate some folklore about a legendary creature or an element of mystery, kind of like Beston Slott's Terror Temple Zoo with the cordyceps, meaning death. Or maybe a rich historical background where it was once a wildlife reserve that went through a hard time and became this zoo, or another rich story about its background. You could make it a family tradition and carry on the legacy of our good old Bernie Goodwin by making it a family venture, your zoo. Or it could specifically talk about environmental challenges you have in your area, maybe a unique environment like the desert. Or it could have a really futuristic vision by having super futuristic habitats and research centers and monorails and state-of-the-art equipment. Maybe a scandalous story about conflict or rivalry with another zoo or a competitive antagonist who really gets in your way. Or hidden treasures could be a fun one with discovery of hidden treasures within the zoo and you could hide items. Or making it all about the rescue and rehabilitation of the animals with fun names and stories. With all these great ideas floating around in your head about your backstory, let's talk about tip 3, which is how you can actually incorporate it into your zoo project. Here are just a few of the ways that I use this fun backstory planning to incorporate it into my zoo. The first is by using certain item placements, by picking maybe a certain item to represent a certain thing and placing it around the zoo, or using a certain theming to represent what the founder loves throughout the zoo. Or maybe by naming certain staff members with the names of the founders or key individuals from the storyline. The same goes for animals or even building groups to represent historical buildings or locations that are in your story. And one of the most important things is writing it all down. So you know me, I'm a shameless plug for my zoo planning workbook. If you haven't grabbed it already, take a look at the first video. I'll link it in the top corner and check out that zoo planning workbook. Or you could simply use a Word doc, Excel, notebook, or all the above to write down your zoo planning if you are as OCD as me about it. So let's jump into my workbook and show you how I've written down all my planning for Coral Cove. So here we are in the Coral Cove Wildlife Sanctuary backstory beginnings. You'll see I created this before I decided to change the name from Coast to Cove, but that's okay, easy fix. Sneak peek at our logo, which will be coming soon to the build. You may have caught it on last week's thumbnail for the video. But I like to start my story in a Word document because it gives me more room to type. So let's talk about the founders of Coral Cove. So first we have Dr. Alexander Mitchell. He's originally from Byron Bay in Eastern Australia, and he loves to go by Alex. He grew up in the seaside community, and he really developed a deep connection to the ocean and marine life, and he spent all his time in the ocean, and that was where his passion for marine biology really first took root. Now, Dr. Isabella Mitchell is his wife, who loves to go by Bella, and she was born and raised in Wellington, New Zealand. And her family used to always go on excursions to New Zealand's native forests, and this is where she really got her fascination with birds and the other flora and fauna all over New Zealand's island. And the couple, they crossed paths during their university years when they were both enrolled in marine biology program at the University of Sydney, and they just shared a huge bond for the natural world. They love to travel, so the journey to Coral Cove actually began in 2005. They embarked on a research expedition, and it's actually that vessel, which you'll see me add here, that they have parked at Coral Cove now, which you'll see in the port from time to time. But that very vessel pulled them into Coral Cove, and they just found this beautiful paradise on this island. And they had an idea and they thought they want to save this paradise for the world to see and to take care of Oceania's beautiful nature. So they immediately got to work thinking about how they could start a conservation project here on this island, but they did have a big challenge. They needed funding for their project. So, in order to make it a reality, they really worked so hard presenting all of their findings and research from their various excursions to different organizations and philanthropists. And the persistence one day paid off when they gave a really compelling proposal to a certain man you may be familiar with. His name is Bernie Goodwin, and it won them the support they needed to establish Coral Cove in 2010, 5 long years after grinding hard to make it a reality. So with it secured, they have begun construction, and we will take them through their journey together. Coral Cove is located on a fictional island I made up called Tuhain Aotearoa. And it means New Zealand's sister in the Maori language of the Polynesian culture around that island. So I came up with some ideas for their core values and mission statements, and I went ahead and added this all into our zoo planning workbook. So super excited to share this backstory with you and give you yet another example of how you can brainstorm and get ideas for your zoo. Now I'm super bought in to see how Alex and Bella take this zoo to fruition. If you find that you're struggling trying to create your backstory, here are a couple tips that you can use. The first one is to use some kind of AI tool. There's a lot of AI tools out there that can help you create a unique backstory. Just use some of the prompts and the questions that I've given you. Some examples are Canva Magic Write or ChatGPT or one of the various other ones out there. The next tip is to be worry-free. Try not to put too much stress or pressure on yourself to create perfection in your project. It's a game, and just have some fun with it. And the last is to copy. Just copy a backstory or an idea from anywhere else. It could be a movie, it could be a game, it could be anything. It's really okay to replicate somebody else's ideas, right? It'll stretch your creative muscles and your Eunice will shine through. And just make sure you don't do it for profit to steal anybody's ideas for money, but to create a fictional zoo in your own game, it's totally fine to copy somebody else's ideas. So here is the entire Lore Galore method broken down for you. Step 1 is to do your research and find out where you might want to get your ideas from. Next is to answer those questions I gave you to get an idea of your backstory. Step 3 is to write it all down. Step 4 is to begin working it into your zoo. And the most important step is to have fun with it all. This project is for your mind to stretch its creativity. Don't let any pressure or self-talk get you down. This is all about you, and it's all about having fun in creating your zoo. So now that you have all of these great tips at hand to get your backstory and lore started for your zoo, go and create the most awesome backstory you can think of and come to my comments and tell me what you come up with. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications for more. Again, it's Kate Plays, and I wish you all happy zookeeping.